Good Lord, you remember this area the other day, and I'm literally talking a couple days ago. This was just a floor, no walls were up here or anything. And in 2 days, the framers were here, and I was talking to the owners who are gracious enough to allow me to take videos of their place being built here. And he said it was the most amazing thing that they had ever seen. They had 8 guys here building. Literally, they were running around all day long for 2 days, building all of these walls up here, and they've got this far in 2 days, the framers. And that just, to me, seems like a lot of work. They were humping it, and they stayed late one day because obviously, hey, when you're a framer, you want to get done. You want to get going to the next job. So they stayed late, and they were trying to get ready because the trusses are going to be here in a couple days, and they wanted to get all of these walls built, framed, adjusted, and all that kind of stuff before the trusses came. And yet the framers, of course, they're off to another job, busting their butts at another project so that they can get back here and install this roof, bouncing back and forth. That's just what you have to do when you're a framer, you know. And they know weather's coming, it's winter's coming, snow's going to be here, rain's going to be here. And if you're a framer and you're a construction worker, that's not the time that you want, because you may be sitting at home twiddling your thumbs wondering about how you're going to make your next house payment, because you can't work because it's raining outside, it's snowing outside, there's too much snow on the road, whatever. Okay, so they just hump it. And I wish I was here that day when they built all this stuff, but I wasn't, and it's best that I kind of stay out of their way anyways. I'm not even sure if the framers want to be shown on camera and all that kind of stuff, but look at all the stuff that they got done. And see, on these exterior walls, you'll see that on some of the walls, the plywood's on there, and that's why that's another reason why they had like 8 people here, because this one particular wall, I think they framed it from there. I'm not sure. From there until somewhere in here, and then as they framed it on the floor, they straightened it, they squared it all up, and then they actually put the plywood on it, and then they tilted the whole thing up. It makes it easier for later because they don't have to get on scaffolds or anything. You can still nail all that stuff in place down on the ground as long as you have your walls square. You got to square up your walls. Know how to square things up on the floor before you get it. And of course, they had to build that long wall first. You know, it's always kind of tricky. Okay, how are we going to build this with all these other walls in the way? Well, there's certain walls you have to do first. Obviously, you got to do the exterior walls first, and then you do a few interiors. Then you have enough room in certain areas to build the walls and still flop them up and all that kind of stuff. So see, later on, they'll have to add some plywood. And see most of this wall, the plywood's already installed. See, and see, it's kind of far down there because there's a room down underneath this. It's called a walkout. I was down there earlier, and see, there's a 10-foot ladder. It's only coming up that far. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, 10-foot ladder. And so, if they wanted to put all this plywood up here, they'd have to put scaffolding up and all that kind of stuff. And they'll still have to set up scaffolding later if they install stucco, let's say, or whatever they install. The next person's going to have to put all the scaffolding. But the framers, they're not going to need any scaffolding because they did all the tall stuff with the plywood on there. See, where it's shorter, they left off some plywood down towards the end, but that's okay. They can get that off of the ground. They couldn't get it off the ground over here. The rest of this stuff down low, they can. See, so they've been thinking. See, here's another tall wall. They've got plywood on there, but see, up, they didn't put plywood on that one, did they? Because I think they built this. They built this in pieces, and then they flopped it up. They probably should have put plywood on there. I'm not quite sure why they didn't. But you know, if they have to set up long extension ladders or whatever they got to do to get up there, they got to do that. Because see here they've got windows, and they put some plywood up, and I thought that was interesting too. They've got some certain type of plywood nowadays. Look at that stuff. It's called flame. Let's see. Here's a piece of it right here. This stuff is heavy too. It's called flame block, fire rated sheeting, and this stuff is really super heavy. There's a coating of stuff on there. It looks like a regular piece of OSB plywood. Let's see. See? Kind of looks like regular OSB plywood, and it's got that layer of that white stuff on there, coating, and it makes it really super heavy. And you know, obviously there's certain places where they've got to install that, and maybe that protects nowadays from if a fire's coming up from the canyon down below. Maybe that protects them to a certain extent. Here's some interior walls. See, they put that flame block stuff up there again, and see that is surrounding the garage. Well, that's a garage wall. See, this is where the main garage is. So if you get a fire in your garage, maybe this flame block plywood will prevent this wall. Maybe that gives this a 1 hour, 2 hour rating. Who knows? Something to where maybe the fire will be put out before it gets into your house. And on this particular project too, for some reason they've now requiring fire sprinklers, and that's a code issue thing. And you know, wherever you live, you have to find out from the building department, hey, does my house have to have fire sprinklers? And depending where you live, you may have to have fire sprinklers, or oh no, you only need to have fire sprinklers if you have a 2-story house as opposed to a 1-story with a walkout down below. Who knows? So you've got to check stuff out like that, and see, they had to read their plans on this one, man, because some of these walls, interior walls, they're 2x6. See, this wall here is a 2x6 wall, yet the next wall is a 2x4 wall. See, there's another 2x4 wall there, obviously, and the exterior walls nowadays on most houses are 2x6 walls. That way they can get more of an R factor insulation inside the wall as opposed to a 2x4 wall. So again, it just depends where you live, what county you live in, what state you live in, what the requirements are going to be. Okay? And so, see, here's some more 2x4 walls. I found that interesting. Here's a wall here. This is a 2x8 wall. This is just the bottom plate to where there's going to be a header there. That's for a door. All the interior doors up here are 8 foot tall. The ones downstairs are 6'8" tall. If you have tall ceilings, these ceilings are probably going to be 10-foot ceilings in certain areas, like that area. All those walls over there are built 10-foot tall, 8-foot tall doors. If you had a 10-foot ceiling and you put a 6'8" tall door in a 10-foot ceiling, yeah, it's cheaper to do that, but then it makes your doors look really small and squat. So usually the aesthetic thing to do, the more pleasing things to do for the eyes, if you have 10-foot ceilings, you have 8-foot tall doors. Okay, I see in this area it jumps up at least 2 feet. This is probably a 12-foot tall ceiling, and you see how the walls are just different heights, and the framers have to figure all that stuff out, as opposed to where the trusses are going to be, where the roof line is going to be. You see in that area here, you see where the roof line is going to be there, but this one's going to be way up taller. So it's going to be interesting to see how the roof line goes. And here's where the stairs are going to go down, and I like, this is for safety. You just build something like this to keep people from falling in there. That's just a given. Most framers know that. Now see, here's that 2x8 wall going across here again, and then here's a double 2x4 down to a single. Same thing over here. And so it's, you know, that's up to the architect. He figures all this kind of stuff out, how things are going to be built. And see, the reason why where these door openings are, the 2x4 runs across there. See, you know, these are where the doors are. When they're framing the wall, it's better to keep that 2x4 all the full length, and then they have a top plate and a bottom plate measured the same. They can lay it all out and stuff, and then they leave that there. They can flop the wall up, and then they can rack the walls to plumb the walls up, to nail them and stuff. And then later, after the roof goes on, then somebody will come back and they'll cut these out. They just chop that out, chop that out. So when you're nailing this, you're nailing down the bottom plate, you got to make sure to only nail down the bottom plates. Don't nail down where the doors are. See? Because you're going to cut that out and pull that up later. And you may think, what are all these things doing in the floor here? Look at all this stuff. It's like you can't even walk through here. Look over here. Look at all those. Well, that's all done for a reason, because after they build all the walls, to plumb the walls up and straighten out the walls and to make sure they're nice and straight, you put a string up there and you do a string line technique. Like for this outside wall, they would check the outside wall first, and they'd pull a string. And lots of guys I've seen, they'll nail a 1x4 on one side or a 2x4, you know, just a little scrap, 1.5 feet long, put it up there, wrap your string around and pull it all the way, and then you can measure off of that string 1.5 inches, 2 inches, whatever the string is at the end, as opposed to the other end, and then you measure over in here to make sure that your outside wall is nice and straight. You don't want that wobbly one way or another, because that affects all your other walls. So see, that's what this brace is for. After they straighten up this wall and somebody sighted it with a level or eyeball it or with the string method, whatever they did, they said, okay, push this in, push the wall out, pull it back in, whatever. And when they say, okay, right there, then they nail this brace on here, and see they've got nails up at the top. You see the nails right there. Okay, and then there's nails down there at the bottom. Okay, and normally what they should do is put maybe a couple, 1 or 2 nails here. They only did it for the top and bottom. They did it right there, and I found that kind of interesting, where they've got those 3 nails. It's almost, those nails are almost in between the 2 plates. The 2 plates there. See? So those top nails really aren't holding as well as they could be. They should have ran a couple of the nails down a little lower and hit the bottom plate as opposed to the middle. You see what I mean? But anyways, then they ran that. Then they did the next one. Boom, boom, boom. And then for the interior walls, you do the same thing. You do the same thing, and that's what all these other braces. That's what all these other braces are for. This brace here actually holds the end of that wall, going from left to right. They'll run the plumb, they're level up there, and then they'll push that one way or another. Okay, nail it. And then that holds that whole section wall straight. And that's why they've got all this stuff down there. Isn't that something? And see, I thought I saw something that I'd never seen before, and it's this little thing right here. Boom, boom. And I was talking to the owner, and he says, oh yeah, they use that for a crank. And they nailed that down at the bottom. And see that, before they nailed this other brace here, see, because they wanted to strengthen that, this wall right here had to be pushed in. Had it been pushing out, it's easier to push that out than it is to pull it in. So you had to pull this wall in. So they nailed it up there, and then they nailed this 2x4 down here. They nailed this piece right there, and then they used that, and then they just pulled back on it. They pulled back on it, and then that would move this way, and then they nailed it down into that. Look at all the nails. Look at all the nails they got in there. And they used that as a crank to pull that back. Years ago, we didn't have that. I would have a 2x6 flat from the top plate coming down and nail it down on a block or something. Had it flat, nailed it on the side, and then we took a smaller 2x6 from here up, like say this. We'd take another one from here to there, and mind you, this would be a 2x6 flat the other way, and then we would take it, push it up in there, and then nail the bottom of this, and then take that and push down that way, and I would take that and it would suck it that way instead of that crank thing. You see what I mean? And then if you needed to push it that way, you would use a long 2x6, put a block in it down here, and nail it down to the floor, and then you would just take that and push it up there and just pull down on it, and it would pull down on there, and then as soon as you got it exactly, then you nail it down into the 2x6, you know, or where this double is, push it down and then nail it. you know, toenail it down in there. You see what I'm saying? And we would do it that way, but I'd never seen that crank method. And see, here's another one. They needed to pull that wall in, and so they used that crank. Before they nailed the bottom of this 2x4 down there, they nailed this little piece here, there, and then they pulled down on that where they needed that to come this way. They would just lift the 2x6 up a little bit, slide it over, slide it over, slide it over. Okay, nail it there. And they put two 2x6s in there so that they had enough nailing on there. See, this crank, this piece here is not doing anything anymore. It's really not, they don't really need that as a crank anymore. They could just whack that off right now, because this is actually holding that. Do you see? And so you have to brace up. You have to brace up and look at all the walls and how they're tied together on the top plates. You do all that first. You don't even care if any of these walls are plumb or not in here, as long as they're nailed all together, and this is nailed, and the top plate is nailed over to the top plate of this. See how this top plate, there's a little piece, and then it's cut out. That top plate on that other wall comes over, connects to there. This one goes over to there. There's another top plate from there that way, and they do all that. And then when they have it all nailed, it's not going to go anywhere. And then when you rack it, it pulls the whole thing one way or another. So as you're taking this wall and pushing it, you make sure it's straight. If it's straight over here, it's going to be straight over there. You see what I'm saying? And they had to look at all the walls. That's why you've got all these braces all over the place, because now they know that all of these walls, you know, especially where you've got a zigzag, where you've got a wall like this, boom, boom, you've got to make sure, well, how do I know that wall is plumb going from left to right? Well, you do, because of this is over to there, and that's holding that to a certain extent. They should have really put something on this little wall too, but they're making the assumption that as they racked it this way, is pulling that section and that section to the right and left wherever they wanted it. And once they nailed this brace, that wall's plumb, that little wall's plumb, this is plumb, you see? And that takes care of all that section. Then they had to check this section here to make sure this was plumb, where they did their crank method over to there. As long as they knew that outside was plumb, they know this wall is plumb, because it's all tied together the same as that. And so you don't have to check this with the level to make sure that's plumb if you already know that's plumb. You see what I mean? Because they hold one and the same. And so they had to put all those braces in. Every construction job looks like this, with all these interior walls like this, before you put on your floor joist. If there's going to be a second floor up there, in this case it's just going to be roof. So your trusses, however they come, as long as they know all this is ready for them, then the trusses come. Once they nail it down, they know all the walls are straight and plumb and square down below. So they know that once they put the roof on, the roof is not going to be moving around, because they have to move a wall later on down the road or something. See, so they've got to check that. Here's some more on the exterior wall. Here's another brace. Oh, that one came off. So see, there's nothing on this little section from here that way, right there, unless it's on this wall. And yeah, see, it is on this wall. See, this 2x4 here, they've got it nailed down really good there up at the top plate, and that's holding that section of wall, and that's holding this wall straight, this wall straight, the next wall straight. You see? And now see, on this long wall here, there's nothing. Well, that's because they built this wall in one piece. They had it down on the ground. They squared it up down on the ground. They nailed the plywood all together when it was down on the ground. They got it all nailed. So when they lifted it up, then the theory has it, when you square up something on the floor, you take a diagonal with your tape measure. If this is 10 feet, 2 inches, then you put your tape measure on the outside there to the outside there. and then you make that 10 feet 2 inches. If it's not, you rack the wall, make it straight, line it up, make sure your top plate is straight, not bowed or anything like that. Then you know, okay, nail the plywood. When it's down on the ground, you can do that. Then when you lift the whole thing up, you know this wall is square. If you put a level on there straight up and down, that wall is going to be plumb. This end's going to be plumb. That's why there's nothing on here, because this plywood's on there. You see what I mean? Same thing with that outside wall. You don't see anything on that section of wall for a brace to rack it one way or another, because they didn't need it, because they had that plywood, kept that straight. And we walk down here. Let's get through the maze of this. No brace there, because they put this down on the ground, and then they nailed all that plywood up there, and then they put it up. So going this direction from left to right is going to be plumb after they put it up. Plumb means level, straight, going vertical. Whenever you hear someone say plumb, that's straight up and down. You put your level there, you look on the bubble, and it will be straight, and that will be called plumb. If you run your level from left to right, that's horizontal. That would be called level. So you would never say, okay, level this stud up. If you told that somebody and they're framing, they'd laugh you out of town, because that's not called level. That's called plumb. Vertical is plumb. Horizontal is level. So see, no brace on this wall either, because they had the plywood on there, and they didn't have to. They squared up this long wall before they nailed the plywood on there, and then when they flopped it up, it's plumb. Okay. And so that's kind of how you do stuff like that. And hey, you got any questions? You can always send me a comment, ask me a question. Hey Joe, what about this? What about that? I can't tell you everything on a job, especially if the guys aren't here. This is kind of just an overview of what your job's going to look like in the framing aspect of it. And you know, they got a long ways to go. Even once they get the roof up, the quickest thing on a job site is when they build the walls. You think, wow, they're getting a lot of progress. This place is going to be done in no time. Then all of a sudden, it's like, hey, where'd everybody go? How come it's taking so long to do everything else? Well, after you get all the walls done and everything, you got to have all the electrical come in. The electrical contractor comes in. He places all your electrical outlet boxes and your switch boxes and your can light boxes and your light fixture boxes and your light switch boxes and your junction boxes, and all of that good stuff all has to be wired, and all the wires have to be pulled and stapled and get all ready for inspection. While he's doing all his work, you got the plumber in here drilling holes through the walls, putting your vents up, hooking all your rough plumbing in, your copper lines, your plastic type lines. And here they're probably going to put plastic lines for the copper or for the water lines. I'll be interesting to see how they do that later. And see here speaking of water and stuff, this was chopped down. We saw this on the framing. They had 3 particular floor joists. Here they are, boom, 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 and they had a notch. And I was asking the owner, I wonder where they did that. And now we know it's because this is where the shower is going to be. They lowered the floor down. That's just how they did it. They lowered it down into the floor with their floor joist notched down and designed that way. And then this is going to be a shower entrance to where there's no ledge. You don't step over it. You just go right in. It's called wheelchair accessible, where the floor height in the rest of the bathroom is the same floor height as the shower, and then it tapers down to the drain. So I'm not sure exactly where the drain is going to be yet. I don't know if the plumber's going to have to decide that. Is the whole thing gonna come down in the middle at all areas, right down to the middle? Is it going to be off to the side? That remains to be seen. Okay, but hey, all that kind of stuff has to be done. And you know, if they have any duct work going from the first floor down to a second floor, or from the first floor going up to the second floor, you got your chase areas. You got to put your ducting in there, your flashing there. If you got a fireplaces, you got to do all that stuff. Now you figure out where you're going to have your TVs hung on the walls. You've got to have your electrical there, your coaxial cables there, your telephone wires. Figure out where you're going to go. If you're going to have telephones. Nobody has telephones in houses anymore, do they? But if you want computer lines run throughout your house, if it's not going to be wireless, whatever. Years ago they did that, and now I don't know. Everything's wireless nowadays, so maybe they don't have to run any of that. But the job site just slows down to a snail's pace, it seems, and you're like, come on, let's get in. We want to get in, but before winter, before summer, before this, before that, and it always seems like it just takes a while because all the trades have to kind of work together. That's why you need a general contractor, supervisor in charge of making sure this work gets done, and you have a schedule for, well, the sheetrocker's going to be here in 2 weeks. Hey, plumbers, we got to get ready. We got to get this nail inspection done so the sheetrockers can be here. Before the sheetrock, the insulation guys have to be here. Then the sheetrockers have to be here. Then the tapers have to be here. Then the painters have to be here. Then the tile guys have to be here. So it's a coordinating fiasco. It's a dance. Somebody has to be in charge of all that stuff. And if one guy breaks that chain, and the sheetrocker says, well, I can't be there this week. We've had another job. It's going longer than we thought, or it was delayed, and we're in it now. We can't come out there for 3 weeks or next month. So then that throws your tapers back, or it throws your painters back, and it throws your tile guys back, or your cabinet guys, or everybody in line. It throws them back, and if you call them up and you have to delay them, well, you're going to delay me for a month. Okay, well, in a month I'm going to be in the middle of another job, so now instead of being delayed by a month, we can't get out there for 2.5 months to do our thing. In the meanwhile, other things are being done in the house to accommodate somebody else who can't get the cabinets there, so the tile guy can't put his tile backsplashes up until the cabinets get installed. And it's just a domino effect. Okay, keep that in mind when you're building a house. All right. Okie dokie. That's all I got for this time. But I'll be back with more videos. And if you like the things I'm showing on my channel, let me know. If there's something you don't like, let me know that too. All right. Okay. Thanks for joining me. Well, this video, I'm going to talk about a bedroom down here. This is the kind of downstairs, and you kind of call this a walkout. It's really not a basement per se. This is all going to be all built out. The stairwell is going to be here. But on the front of the house, it's going to look like a one-story because you come into the house, everything is on the main floor. That's what I like, that you don't have to walk upstairs to go to the bedrooms. And then you can come down here, and then there's a whole area downstairs, and it just depends on the contour of your property and how you want your house and all that kind of stuff. I mean, they could have built a 3-story. This could have been the bottom floor and then the main floor, and then they could have put a 2nd story on top of that if they wanted. It's just all in the design. But let's just talk about this one bedroom here. This is going to be kind of a master type bedroom. You kind of walk in here, and here you come into this area, and the owners, they're going to have a big long closet right here, and they're going to put clothes on one side and kind of walk down here. It's just the way everything laid out. And they were looking at this, and this is where the main bed area is going to be and stuff, and here's going to be the bathroom, and where the shower area is going to be, and the toilet and the sinks and all that kind of stuff. Well, the quandary was, initially they were going to put a little closet right here in the corner. That's all you need, right? But they've decided, the owners have decided, they want their bed up against this wall, so they can see out these windows, and there'll be a nice view here and stuff. And they thought, you know what, we're really don't think we want a closet in this room at all. If we want to use a closet, we'll put stuff. We'll tell our guests, because this is not going to be used every day. Their guests, we'll just tell them to use the closet here. Then they can make this room bigger. Well, what's the quandary? Well, the quandary is, I told the owners, I says, well, you know what the codes are, and he was aware of it, and I don't know if you are or not, but if you have a bedroom and you want to call it a bedroom, it has to have a closet. If it has no closet, you cannot call it a bedroom. So whenever you sell a property, you get more money the more bedrooms you have, as opposed to the more office areas. Like if you're using one bedroom as an office, let's say, you want to make sure that office has a closet in there, so that if you move away, you can list that study as a bedroom. And if the next person uses it for a bedroom or a study, fine, whatever, it's got the closet in there. So there's your tip for the day on wanting to show this, if you want to show this as a bedroom or not. Okay, the other thing to do is, if you didn't want the closet on this side, you could install a closet on this wall over here, depending where your bed's going to go, that kind of thing. Okay, and I had another interesting thing. I was talking to the owner, and he was saying, well, if you don't show this as a bedroom, if it doesn't have a closet, maybe your property tax goes down, because they only base it on how many amounts of bedrooms you have. So there's another thing to think about when you're designing a room, a bedroom, whether or not it has a closet or not. Use it to your benefit, figure it out, and go from there. Okay, that's it for this time.